There is so much more to life than what we see. What if we were capable of feeling it? This is the Inner Guide Podcast, a journey back to you. Welcome to the Inner Guide Podcast. My name is Isabel Churchill, and I'm your host for this journey back to you. The subject we're going to cover today is quite a strong subject. It is the shadow work. This is a term that we'll hear a lot in the spirituality and in the New Age also approach. You'll hear a lot of people talking about that. But as a psychotherapist, it is something that we recognize a lot in our work. It's not something uncommon for people who have studied the Jung approach, for example, to understand the shadow work. For me, shadow work is something that is constantly present. I think my role on earth is to help people move through that shadow work. And unfortunately, I often have the role of triggering some people in order for them to recognize the work that they have to do. So that's not a fun role, I have to admit, but somebody has to do it. That's how I see it. So often people who are triggered by things, it's just a way of recognizing that it's shadow work coming up to light. I was actually sharing some great quality time with friends last night where we talk about a little bit of the ego. And I realized how the ego is actually a great ally in shadow work. I want to say that the ego has nothing bad in itself. The ego has a very important role, which is to keep us safe and protected. But sometimes the ego step out of the boundaries and kind of go into the spiritual journey for the wrong reasons. The best way to utilize your ego is to actually pay attention of when it raises a red flag or when it's triggered. Because a trigger for the ego would be like a reaction, an intense reaction to something. And for your self mind, you can see it as basically your work being laid out for you. It's your way to basically realize what you need to work on. Shadow work has nothing easy about it, and it requires a certain amount of awareness and also vulnerability. One, you have to recognize that it is a shadow. And two, you have to be courageous enough to do the work to liberate that shadow, to shed light to it, to bring it up and basically face it. I love this saying that always say the only way out is through, and that is shadow work. That's how it goes. That's how it rolls. And I'm sharing this with you today because I had quite an interesting insight yesterday and an amazing experience. And it just made me realize how much I've grown, but also how quick I can move through things, even though I still have shadows, even though I'm still triggered by things. Yet all the work that I've done in the past years have led me to be more agile of facing some of the things that comes my way for growth. Let me recount you my day yesterday. So first of all, I'm on this carb cycling nutrition, which is amazing. If you know nothing about it, I strongly recommend to search it. I love it. But carb cycling means that 2 days a week, I eat very low carbs. And yesterday was my first low carb day. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is just to say that I woke up and I had a pretty good day, and all of a sudden I was super irritated. And I think it's because I didn't eat enough carbs. So be mindful that food affects your emotions. I was mindful of that. So I tried to avoid interaction as much as possible in those days. But I had some really odd interactions. I had this conversation. So I'm organizing or was organizing this big event. So it's a Reiki event in August. It's a Reiki session for a group and it's online. So I was hosting that and I was trying to find partners because I love working in community. So I invited this Reiki teacher who I really enjoy working with. She said yes. I invited this person I've never worked with, and I could sense in our conversation that he wasn't trusting what I was sharing, or he was very hesitant and he did not commit. And he kept on asking the same question. I felt like I was answering it, and I tried to schedule a call with him, and it wouldn't work. And usually when things are hard like that, like it's just not meant to happen. So at one point I just gave up. I was like, you know what? This is too complicated. I'm just not going to partner with this person. And then I reached out to one of my my student and teacher and colleague from my Reiki group and asked him if he would like to partake in the event. And he said he was very flattered that he would give me an answer by tomorrow. And I was kind of irritated by then because I thought, well, if you're really in alignment with your heart, you would have said yes or no right away. Like, that's how I feel. Like, I felt like if you were really in alignment with your heart and really wanted to do this, you would have said yes right away. So it's probably a no. And for me, I'm a very energy healing with group is very sacred to me, and you have to want to participate in order to participate. Because if it's like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. No, yeah, the energy will transfer, and the energy have to be of high quality and frequency. So I need you to be excited about it if you want to partake. And that's my requirement, just because I have experience in the past that when people are not really are doing it just for the duty of it, or the because they feel responsible to do it, it just doesn't align, doesn't work. So I asked him, I said, so are you doing it because you want to do it, or are you doing it out of duty? And he did not answer. He answered with something like, oh, if you don't trust me. And it was again about trust. And I was like, what is that about? And I was so irritated by the answer. I was like, why would I not trust you? Like, I reached out to you to ask you if you want to participate. I wouldn't invite you if I didn't trust you. So for me, it was like, I don't know. I just felt like it was questioning my character. And I know it was not his intention. I know better. I know this is me struggling inside with something that has nothing to do with him nor the event. So I continue through the conversation. And I asked him again, I said, do you want to do this because you want to do it? You're excited about it? Or is it more because out of duty? And his response was, it's an excellent question. And that annoyed me too. I'm like, yeah, it is. Like, just answer. And that's like my mindset. I'm a very like bold and upfront person. So I struggle with indecisive individuals. And then I started feeling so uncomfortable. Like, I started feeling like this tightness in my throat and my chest. And I told him, I said, okay, there's something off with the energy right now. I'm just going to pause this conversation. I'm going to step out, recenter myself, and I'll come back to finish this conversation because there's something off. And I'm so glad I did that. I stepped back and I just centered myself, and I was asking myself, what is this about? And then everything started making sense to me. And I saw myself a month ago when this same person I was interacting with asked me, or he suggested the idea, strongly suggested that we do an event on the birthday of Mikao Usui, who's the founder of Reiki. And I remember at that time being like, I don't want to organize something like this. Like, I don't have the energy. That will be the week before my vacation. And I don't know, I just wasn't feeling it. It was not in alignment. So this is shadow work showing up in another way, because I kept on asking him, are you doing it because you want to do it, or are you doing it because of duty? And I started laughing because I was like, oh my God, that question is not for him. It's for me. And I'm not doing it out of pleasure. And that is my shadow work. It's for me to get back into integrity. Integrity is so important when you work in energy. You have to be so conscious of your integrity at all time. And there I was organizing an event with hundreds of people, sending them Reiki energy, and yet I was not in alignment with the event. And that would have been really bad. That would have been really bad, because I would have sent some kind of toxicity into that energy. And most people are not aware of that when they work. But the beauty of Reiki is that there is 5 principles. And one of them is to be honest in your work. And there I was. For me, not being integrity means you're not honest with your work. And there I was. And that's why I was feeling so uncomfortable. That's why there was something off. And it's so easy to blame the other person for our own shadows. It would have been easy for me to say, like, you're not answering my question, I don't want to work with you. It would have been so easy to do that. And yet, I was like, no, this is my own shadow. This is my own issue, and I need to solve it. So I was faced with canceling the event, and I already had over 40 registration. I already sent it through all my media, already invited people to partake in the event. And as a business owner, this is a big mistake in some ways. It could be seen as a big mistake. I saw it as a blessing, but it could be seen as a big mistake. And what you do when you make a mistake as a business person, you don't hide your mistake. You don't hide your flaws. You have to be honest and show your vulnerability. That's the only way that people will connect with you. That's the only way that people will understand and show compassion and empathy. But it's the hardest way. It's the hardest way because you're admitting that you're not perfect. You're admitting that you are still on a journey. You're admitting that you're not above the shadow work. You still do shadow work. And I know, we all know that no one is perfect, but when it's yourself, it is kind of a slap in the face. It is a challenge. And that's shadow work. Shadow work has nothing easy about it. There's nothing easy about shadow work because it is deep inside of us. And when it shows up, you want to hide it again. You want to run away from it. But again, the only way out is through. So I had to go through this process, and thank God I have really good people that surround me. So I went to my best friend, Lou, which will be a guest on this podcast. She'll be with us to talk about the inner child. And Lou was just wonderful to walk me through it. And she was really sweet. She's a very gentle person. And she said, well, it seems like you have to cancel the event. And then I think she felt my struggle. And she said, well, you don't have to cancel it, but maybe reorganize it the way you want it. And I thought, no, I truly have to cancel this because I'm just not in alignment with it. So I decided to send an email to the group and just tell them how I felt, tell them what happened, and be absolutely honest with them. And I'll share with you what I wrote because I feel it's part of the experience. I feel it's part of how I approached it, and it could inspire some of you to do the same. So I wrote to them. I said, "Good evening. I'm writing to you today to share my humility lesson that I received this morning." And sorry for the translation. It was written in French. "If you know me well, you know that I always tell people that when practicing Reiki, we must always remain in integrity with ourselves. Otherwise, we are not an optimal channel of Reiki energy." This is one of the first things that I teach people. It's so important. That said, I have had several interactions in the last few days that have made me realize that I was organizing this event out of obligation or to please others, and not out of pleasure. As a result, I have to respect myself, and I will cancel the August 15 event. It is possible that another person from my Reiki teaching circle will take over. If this is the case, I will inform you immediately and give you the details to register. I cannot tell you the exact reason why I'm not in integrity with this event. And I think this is important. Something important to say is that sometimes we don't know why it's not in integrity. Sometimes we just can't put words to it, but we have to respect it. So I continue saying it has nothing to do with the event itself, but I believe that the future will confirm for that reason I have withdrawn. The important things for me today is to respect and listen to me. This is also a great service for you. I know that many will be disappointed with this cancellation, but know that it is still powerful to do the personal work. I know that Mikao Usui presented Reiki as a tool for oneself first, so I invite you to still celebrate Usui's energy by doing a self-treatment on his birthday. I'm sure it will make him smile a lot. If you wish, I also invite you to consider doing 21 days of self-treatment starting on July 26 and ending on his birthday, August 15. That is certainly what I will do. Thank you for your support, your presence, and your listening. Without you, I would not be able to grow through these wonderful life lessons. See you soon. And I could not believe how many positive response I got from people and how it helped them also understand how to approach things, that the courage I had gave them strength, and also how it's just good in some ways to see that I'm human. And not that people think I'm not human, but when you are a teacher, and I have thousands of students that I support, well, more than 2,000 students that I support, and sometimes they tend to put you on this pedestal and think that you're above certain things, and you're not. You're truly not. It doesn't mean that I've been doing my work for years that I'm above that work. And that is probably the hardest thing to maybe accept, is that shadow work will probably be present until your last day on earth. But it gets easier. I have to admit that this experience was so humbling. This experience was such an amazing experience. Honestly, I'm very grateful of having this shadow showing up for me yesterday. Why? Because I feel like next time will be so much easier. I feel like the next time it will be easier to listen to that inner voice that says, you don't want to partake in this. And then not start going against my will, going against what I wanted. And I feel it goes really well with the last episode about boundaries, because that was my shadow work, was about some kind of boundaries, but mostly integrity. So shadow work has nothing easy about it, but it makes us grow so fast. It makes us move forward in a different way. And yes, yesterday sucked. Yesterday was really like, I remember saying to Lou, I'm like, what's going on with today? Why is it like that? Like, why is it so hard? Why is it so frustrating? And it was hard. It was difficult. It was challenging. And it was just so irritating, on top of not having the nutrition I had for my emotions. Trust me, all I wanted to do was to eat carbs, because it's a comfort food, right? Carbs and shadow work should go hand in hand. But really, it's just, today is a new day, and I feel like so good, and I feel so energized. And it's kind of funny because it's a half moon today, and I have this strong belief that half moon is about balancing. It's about bringing back the balance. And I've never been one to really do any rituals on the full moon or new moon, but I've always celebrated the half moon because it's just a time of balance. It's the dark and the light, and it's in balance. So just think about the last time you were triggered, and what was that trying to teach you as a shadow aspect of yourself? A shadow aspect is simply something that we don't really want to face, something we don't really want to pay attention to, something that's with us for a long time, and we know it's something we don't really like about us, so we often choose to ignore it. We often choose to just go by. And honestly, like the experience I had yesterday, if that happened maybe 2 months ago, I would have probably just did it. I would probably just continue and do it and be like, just don't be silly, Isabel. Just plow through. You can do it. It doesn't matter if you don't care. It's for others. It's fine. Everything will be okay. But it wasn't. It's not okay. Because now the more I realize that if I'm not in integrity with myself, I'm not in integrity with my work, and my work is not optimal. And the work has to be optimal. The work has to be the best way I can help others is to be my optimal self. And the best way I can be my optimal self is to stay in integrity. And integrity means doing my shadow work, facing it. So whatever you're experiencing right now, whatever is coming up for you as shadow, and the darkest shadow we can face is that dark night of the soul when everything just seemed like falling apart. It takes courage. It takes time, but it takes willingness to look into it. And that willingness is not always accessible, always there. We're not necessarily ready to face it. But shadow work is truly a beauty, and it helps you so much to kind of move through the waves of life. And there is absolutely no way you can grow if you don't do shadow work. There's absolutely no way you can change if you don't face those shadows. So it can be very empowering to just go with it. And feel free to not go at it alone. There is so much that we can do with the support of others. It doesn't have to be an alone phase. It doesn't have to be something that we go by alone. Because that's the ego. The ego will tell us, oh, you have to go by alone. And it's not. And I want to share also the shadow work is the negative energy. So we've talked about energy before, and the negative energy is often perceived as bad, and the positive energy is perceived as good. But if you remove those labels from that, it just empowers you to see it differently. There's nothing bad about negative energy. Yes, I was experiencing negative energy yesterday, but actually it was a good thing. It turned out to be amazing. It turned out to be exactly what I needed. So there's nothing about good or bad that is related to positive or negative. We really need to remove those labels and reconsider another way to perceive those things. When you think about it, the earth is a negative entity. It's an entity that transmutes the negative energy into positive energy. It's something that's very heavy, very, when we say grounded, that's a type of negative energy, but it's a positive one in the sense of good. So not everything that has negative energy has to be bad, and I think we need to shift that mindset. Shadow work is a negative work. It's a negative vibration because it holds a very low frequency. But those low frequency is what will project us upward. When you utilize your negative energy to fuel your forward movement, it is so powerful. This is actually a technique that was taught to me by the Arcturian energy, that you can utilize your negative emotions, your negative experience to push you forward, to push you up, to push you in a more higher frequency. And that's exactly what I did yesterday. I utilized my negative energy and transmuted that energy into something positive. It's as simple as that, but there's nothing easy about it. Simple doesn't make things easy. It doesn't equal easy. So there is some challenges into doing it. But when you start seeing negative energy as an opportunity to transmute to positive, it just changed your whole experience. It changed your whole perception. So shadow work is something that we all go through, either you're conscious of it or not. We all go through it through our life. We all have experiences of facing some shadows, or maybe it was more about avoiding the shadows too. If you're the type of person that get triggered easily, there's definitely something that needs to be addressed, needs to be looked at, observed, and you need to learn from it. Because the more you're triggered, the more your shadow is trying to come through. And don't believe 1 minute that it's the other person's fault. Because it's not. The other person is just of service to you to help you grow. And that's the beauty, is that villains around us are there to bring us our shadows forward and show us the light, the way to the light. And that's why I say negative doesn't mean to have to be bad. There's been plenty of negative people in my life, but I came to realize with my shadow work that they had a role to make me grow. I wrote this ode back in 2020, and I want to read it to you. It's an ode to villains. A light in the dark. To my high school teacher, who told me that I couldn't go to university because I wasn't smart enough, I say thank you for teaching me that I could do whatever the hell I want. To my first boyfriend who abused me, I say thank you for teaching me that I can stand in my power. To all the narcissistic, psychopath, female bosses, and yes, I had a lot, who limited me in my work, I say thank you for teaching me that I could be successful with kindness while recognizing others' gifts and contribution to the world. To my university who refused me access to an advanced education in psychology, I say thank you for showing me the path to success and happiness. To a past episode of major depression who put me to a deep rest, I say thank you for teaching me to balance my personal, professional, and inner life to take care of my body and learn to say no. To ex-friends who abused of my kindness, accused me of lying, and stole my business ideas, I say thank you for teaching me that I don't need approval from anyone. To my ex-husband who cheated on me for months, I say thank you for teaching me that I am good enough and I am worthy of being loved and I deserve to be happy. To my financial failures who made me move to a tiny apartment, it was horrible, I say thank you for teaching me that material has no place in one's life path toward joy. To all my clients who didn't trust in my skills, knowledge, and experience, I say thank you for teaching me that I don't need to prove anything to anyone. To death, who took the life of people and pets I love, I say thank you for teaching me that I am never alone and that loved ones live forever in my heart. To all the challenges that are to come, I say thank you for allowing me to grow and break the cycles in my life that no longer serve me. To all the villains in this world who I stumbled upon, I say thank you for teaching me that love has no opposite and will always be more powerful than fear, weapons, and hate. I will always shine my light. It's such an empowering experience to have written this. And rereading it, the last time I wrote it in 2020, so I haven't read it since. And it's just very inspiring. It is so empowering. And I want to conclude on this. I want you to write your own ode to villains. I want you to write your own difficulties and what they have taught you. This is being grateful for the experience of shadow work. This is repositioning all that we've experienced in our life that was not always fun and pleasurable or not always comfortable, but that we've actually outgrown that and we've learned from it. Hence why we're not repeating those. And that's the beauty of shadow work. When you face it, you will unlikely have to face it again. There's just something that shifts in you that allow you to move on. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share my life experience and also my current experiences with you. It is always a blessing to know that other people are going through similar things. It just makes us connect with each other. So feel free to reach out anytime. I'm always happy to hear from you. And also, you can absolutely recommend or suggest any themes, anything you would like me to cover on this podcast. Until our next episode, I send you tons of love, and I'm really grateful that you are here on this journey with me.